Welcome back, viewers. You are still tuned into Prime Live. We're about to delve into a conversation with Fatima Seedat, who is the Development Manager at SADAG, and she is an advocate for promoting emotional well-being, particularly amongst young people. She's extremely passionate about helping teens overcome the unique challenges that they face. Fatima understands the complexities when it comes to adolescent mental health, finding solutions to the problems they are facing, and also understanding and navigating the certain pressures that teenagers and adolescents are under, whether that be academic pressure or even peer pressure or social media. Join us as we delve into a conversation with Fatima to understand a little bit more about our young people and some of the mental health challenges that they have and how we can assist them. Assalamu alaikum, Fatima. Thank you so much for joining us on Prime Live.
Shukran for having me on air today.
I think this is such an important conversation because we know that particularly the newer generations struggle a lot from very different issues that I might have had when I was a teenager. Beyond the academic pressures that young people have, with the intervention of social media platforms, can also cause a lot of disarray in terms of the mental health and cause a lot of pressure on our young people. Can you talk to us about some of the social media expectations, some of the academic pressures, and how they affect young people's mental health?
That's such a great question. And I think a lot of our youth today, they turn to social media. And through COVID as well, we've become a technologically inclined society where people, instead of having face-to-face conversations and being interactive in person, we're using a lot of different social media platforms to communicate. And sometimes we get misunderstood when we are conversing over it. Also, they become more comfortable relaying their feelings and emotions over social media. So yes, it has a huge impact on our teens. And if we look at, the influencer life and how people portray their lives to be, a lot of these kids want to be a lot like these influencers. Also the bullying that happens over social media because you're trying to get a message across and you want to share your beliefs, but then you get bullied over it. So there's a lot of dynamics that go on in social media, and it does impact the young generation as well as besides going through those pressures and trying to keep up with everything, they go through pressures at home. So they're trying to, make their parents happy to achieve whatever they are expected to achieve on academic levels. Some of the children are not um, equipped, or they have more of a creative mind in comparison to an academic mind, and the parent is expecting more from them. So there's a lot that they do go through. And then in addition to all of that, we live in a society where we are exposed to so many traumas from, at home, the gender-based violence that may happen. In the streets, you could be walking, you could get robbed, you could be a victim of some sort of crime. So there's a lot of things that they do go through and they could be impacted by, but I think they need to be more aware that there is help out there to receive that type of support if they ever need.
Absolutely. I think the younger people, beyond the environmental factors, they can have a significant impact on themselves and their mental health. I think teenagers are in such a crucial and developmental stage in their life where they're still trying to figure out who they are and what they want to be, not with the intervention of social media already confusing them and putting pressure on them in terms of expectations on how they should look, what they should be achieving. And like you said, this kind of influencer culture can also have a very negative impact on themselves, their self-image, as well as how they perceive themselves. But beyond that, I think the important thing that our viewers might want to know from you today is, instead of blaming our teenagers and being hard on them based on their behaviors towards these different environmental factors that they are exposed to, as well as for us to be able to better cater to their mental health, what are some coping mechanisms that you could possibly share with us in terms of helping young people navigate the difficulties of just being a teenager in this generation? How do we better cater to their mental health needs, and how do we teach them to better communicate and express how they're feeling?
That is such an important question, especially for the people looking out today. Um, Firstly, I think we've come to a society where there's a lot of defragmentation, where we don't communicate as what we used to before. So when you get home, your child gets home, they don't have that interaction with the parent because the parents are working, they are busy. And even in the evenings, they may have supper by themselves. They're not being with parental guidance at any given time. It does become very difficult. So the biggest thing, and I think I advocate for this a lot, is opening the communication channels. So speaking to your teenager, making sure that they feel safe when they are going through something, making them feel safe that yes, I can reach out to my parent, I can reach out to a guardian to speak about different things. We can also, teach our children from a young age, it's okay not to feel okay sometimes, but not everyone's the same. Not everyone has that coping skill where what may be easy for me might not be easy for you, and vice versa. So we just have to be aware of this and we have to make them aware of it. So when they are struggling, they know, okay, fine, I'm struggling today. Let me talk to someone, be it a friend, a family member, a parent, a sibling, or even just picking up the phone and speaking to someone on the call center lines that where there's a counselor there that can help them. So there's various ways, and I think the most important thing is communication and also openly talking about mental health and well-being, because the more you speak about your emotions, your feelings, the more they become comfortable with it and they are able to then converse on a better level and share how they're feeling at that time.
I think what you've shared there is so incredibly important, particularly in this very digital world that we now live in, where communication has become very, as much as we have many platforms for communication, it's definitely stunted actual communication between people. Like you mentioned earlier in the conversation, is that young people are so used to being able to communicate with each other via a social media platform. They aren't always able to communicate effectively when it's a one-on-one. Or we are maybe opening up more channels to be able to discuss mental health and communicate mental health. And there is much less of a taboo than there maybe was 5 years ago. But teenagers aren't as open to having these kind of meaningful conversations where they're able to open up about what they're actually experiencing. But what I also wanted to ask you about this evening is navigating these new unique challenges that face teenagers can be quite tricky and really difficult in terms of managing their mental health. For parents out there who might be watching and perhaps they have a son or a daughter who is currently experiencing difficulties with mental health, what would be your advice to them about coping mechanisms and possible outlets for them to be able to de-stress, cope with the environmental factors that are stressing them, and cater better to their mental health?
That's brilliant question again. I think when it comes to our teenagers, we need to implement. I know it's not having a very rigid lifestyle, but teaching them that yes, self-care is important. So always allocate something that you enjoy to do at least once or twice a week. um Through that as well, then you teach them lifestyle skills. So making sure they eat properly, they sleep properly. A lot of teenagers don't know the value of sleep, and sleep is one of the biggest, most important things for you to be feeling rejuvenated, especially when it comes to exams time. They sort of stay up all night, pull a all-nighters, cram everything in, go to write. Sometimes it doesn't work, and we need to be more aware of that. And then it's about, the basic stuff like exercise. Then teaching your child, okay, if you are feeling overwhelmed, there are certain things you can do, like deep breathing techniques. Um, if you are feeling overwhelmed, who do you feel comfortable with? Who do you turn to? So putting something in place with them, almost like a safety plan. If where is your happy place? If you are feeling overwhelmed, where do you feel most comfortable? Where do you feel most safe? Go to that place. What are some of the activities you enjoy? List them. And when you are feeling a bit stressed out or overwhelmed again, go and do something that you enjoy. Take a break. It's okay to stop what you're doing and take a break from what you're doing and then carry on doing it, because it will make it easier for you to do whatever you're supposed to do.
Thank you for sharing that. I think when it comes to teenagers, we also need to understand that they are under a certain amount of stress as well, and they also need coping mechanisms and de stressing materials for them to be able to, like you said, take better care of themselves and do something that they enjoy as well, beyond those academic pressures that we do put on them. But an important point, and an important talking point I really would love to get your opinion on this evening, is particularly the young teenage boys. Now, when it comes to boys, particularly and mental health, and men in general, the statistics are alarming when it comes to mental health. And that's because culturally and societally we've taught men, and we've taught young boys that, it's not masculine to talk about your feelings. It's a sign of weakness to talk about your feelings. And they have a tendency to show, or rather associate, weaker emotions such as, sadness or anxiety with a more feminine energy, which is not necessarily the case. So culturally we're breeding this very toxic culture within our young boys, and it's creating a lot of mental health issues, particularly in young boys who aren't able to express that they are going through something and that they are struggling with their mental health. Can you address the issue at hand, and can you address what we can be doing better when it comes to educating our young boys on the importance of being able to effectively communicate and deal with their emotions?
Yes. So, when we have our young boys and they're growing up, and if they fall, what do we say? Stand up quickly, dust yourself off, you fine. And when a girl falls, what's the difference? They fall down, you run to them, you coddle them, you make them cry, you comfort them and you let them carry on. So from a young age, we are already teaching our boys that, you know what, it's not you can't feel this way or you can't get hurt. So I think, that mind shift change has to come in. If a boy falls, ask them if they're okay, comfort them as well, treat them the same. So as they grow older, they'll be able to articulate better of how they're feeling. So even when you're having conversations with them, ask them, how are you feeling today? How was your day? Because we often overlook them and we're not finding the the good conversations with them. And I think when we become so preoccupied with things that we overlook the fact that our boy children are not feeling okay, or oh, they just being naughty or they acting out. Most men, when they are going through some difficult times, it's either they turn to inappropriate ways of dealing with stuff, so drugs, alcohol, etc. And with the emotions, it's always anger, agitation, and then you think, oh, I think he has like ADHD or he's conduct disorder. I need to take him to a psychiatrist or psychologist, but actually they're just looking for attention and comfort. So I think that's where we need to start. Is start comforting our boys, start making them feel that it's okay not to be okay sometimes, and have those tough conversations with them from a young age, because that's what's going to help them grow up to be men that are more mindful of how they're feeling, and they are able to then articulate how they feel.
Absolutely. That was very, very powerfully said. Fatima, thank you so much for joining us this evening. This was incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for joining us.